Hey guys, just uploaded your new assignment. Now, this assignment is going to take you till May. There's something to accomplish every week. So pay attention and follow the deadlines every week. Here's what it is. It's called Stuck Inside. We're all kind of stuck inside. That's why I came up with the assignment.
Now, there's not a whole lot inside your Google Classroom in terms of the write-up goes, but there are 3 attachments down at the bottom, so be sure to scroll down and look at those. There's the instructions, specific instructions for this assignment. There is a Google form. You'll be filling this out 3 or more times, and there's a link to the Dropbox with 6 films, among which you will watch 3 or more, depending on your choice. Now, let's look at the instructions. Your job: you're going to watch 3 related films. I've chosen how they're related. Don't worry, any films from this pick are related. Create a short film that analyzes some technical aspects of these Stuck Inside films. We have 4 weeks. It's a 4-week project. So, what are we talking about here? Well, you're going to need to screen 3 films from the list at the end of the document. And you're going to watch each of these films for cinematic techniques that augment the film, that help the film out in some way. So what you're going to find at the end of the document are 6 films, and I've categorized them in pairs. 2 of them are from the 60s and 70s, that's tag A. 2 of them are from the 90s, that's tag B. And 2 of them are much more recent than that, from 2009 and 2019, and that's tag C. I've grouped all these films. All of these films have one thing in common, and that is that they are about being stuck in a place. I think that if you suss out that theme, if you look at what it is to be stuck in a place, those films are all related in terms of commenting on the resiliency of the human spirit. I'm going to make that claim right now, that all of these films have that in common, and you can be watching for that as you watch each one. They also, another way of saying that is that individuals can overcome their environment or the confines of their environment. And this idea of redemption, redeeming oneself in some way. Redemption is a word that comes from religion, but it can also be redeeming oneself in the eyes of society. So, we are going to assume Mr. Prince is right, that all of these films have this theme of resiliency of the human spirit, overcoming the environment, and redemption. So as you watch them, you're going to pick a couple of films to watch, and each time you sit down to watch one, you're going to have that idea in your brain. I'm looking for how this film does that thing that Prince claims that it does. But really what you're going to do is appreciate the story, appreciate the film, and try to appreciate a few of the techniques that the film uses. Best case scenario, you're going to come away and see a few techniques, cinematic techniques, perhaps from the cinematography. Perhaps it's the composition of a shot. Perhaps it's a movement, a slow push in, a dolly out. Maybe it's a very high angle shot. Maybe the camera starts low and moves high and gives the viewer a sort of psychological connection to what's going on, to the theme, the tone, the character. Maybe you get that same connection through editing. Maybe you notice that the editing changes. We get flash frames, or maybe dissolves, or maybe the pacing of the editing picks up in some places and slows down in other places. Maybe the editor has decided to tell 2 stories at the same time by cutting back and forth between the 2 stories, cross-cutting. That might help this theme a little bit by the choices the editor made. And the editor also makes sound choices. Do we hear sounds that are really quiet, but we hear them really loud? Is the sound in the environment augmented in some way for us, the viewing audience? A film is not reality. It is a presentation of a story. And all the choices at the director's disposal, including cinematography, editing, sound effects, as well as story and acting, are there for you to notice. So, it's week 1. You're going to do some quick research and decide which films you're going to watch, because you don't have to watch all of them. Well, what are the films, Prince? Down here. They're categorized by letter, A, B, and C. They're categorized by era, 60s, 70s, 90s, present day. And I just I put colors on them too, so you really see the difference. So you're going to pick one of these 2 films. You have to watch one from the 60s and 70s. You're either going to watch Cool Hand Luke, or you're going to watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've given you a 1-sentence description I didn't overly describe the film for you. I don't like it when someone tells me everything that happens in a film. If I'm going to watch the film, I want to watch the film. I want it to unfold in the way that it's supposed to unfold for an audience. For this reason, I don't like previews. I don't like trailers. If I'm going to see the film and I haven't yet, it shows me every major shot in the film is in the trailer, squeezed into 30 seconds. I don't want to see all that stuff until it's given to me at its proper time. So I've only given you a one-sentence description knowing that you want to decide which of these two films to watch. I've done that with all of these. One sentence. Oops. That being said, if you want to do some more research, if you want to talk to people about it, if you want to Google some reviews, if you want to look at the trailer on YouTube, if you want to go to the IMDb page, by all means, make an informed decision. I want you to enjoy the film you're watching. I'm going to talk briefly about each film, but beyond the one-sentence description, why it's important, why it made the list. As I was thinking about being stuck, I started to think about films that were about being trapped. And a lot of these films ended up being prison films. And that's where we really start our journey. Cool Hand Luke is a film starring Paul Newman. It's a very famous film, very famous character. There's an icon of cinema, the man with no eyes. He's a prison guard that wears these tinted sunglasses, and you never see his eyes. And he's sort of become almost a caricature of film history. So it's a really important film in a lot of ways. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, another very important film. A young Jack Nicholson from 1975. This was right after Chinatown. We watched Chinatown together. That film was made in 1974. So the next year, Jack Nicholson makes One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is an important film. The director is Czech Republic's own Milos Forman. You might recognize that country because that's where Katarina's from. Milos Forman making his American directorial debut and does an excellent job, makes a great film there. Nurse Ratched is a classic cinema villain, and Jack Nicholson just does a wonderful job being Randall McMurphy. Now it's called A Cuckoo's Nest because, like Cool Hand Luke, R.P. McMurphy is a criminal. And he has been sentenced, or he's about to be sentenced to jail, but instead he pleads insanity, and he's actually sentenced to serve time in a mental institution. He thinks it's going to be easy, but he's there until they release him. He's not there. He can't check himself out at any time, so he's confined as well. So that gets us up to the 90s, The Shawshank Redemption. Guess what? Another prison film. This one's interesting because it's based on Maine's own Stephen King's short story. This was originally a story called Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank is the name of the prison. Rita Hayworth was a famous pinup model / actress from 50s and 60s, I suppose. And they dropped that title, or they truncated the title because it's just a whole lot of mouthful. Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. But if you knew that going in, you'll see that the pinup model of Rita Hayworth is a facet to this storytelling. It's about a man who's in prison, but he's innocent. Good film. Stars Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman narrates the whole film, so we get that strong, charismatic God voice of Morgan Freeman. This is he's almost become a cliche as far as his voice narrating films. This was one of the first times that they used that device, so just keep that in mind when you watch this, that, I've heard Morgan Freeman's voiceover all the time. This was one of the first times that they had done that in cinema. If you're not watching that one, though, then you're watching Dead Man Walking. This one was actually directed by Tim Robbins in 1995, so it's the next year. I don't know if Tim Robbins got in his head after playing a prisoner, if he got that in his head, he wanted to direct a movie about prison, but this was right afterwards. A few of the same actors are in both Shawshank Redemption and Dead Man Walking. Dead Man Walking stars actually Tim Robbins' wife, Susan Sarandon, as Sister Helen Priggen. Now, this is based on a true story, Dead Man Walking is. It's not a fiction piece, definitely not based on a Stephen King story. Stars Sean Penn as a convicted murderer who's on death row awaiting his execution. It's pretty bleak. Jumping up to the more recent ones. Hey, you got to have a foreign film on there. You want to read some subtitles? Diving Bell and the Butterfly. This is a good film because it's as far as the list, it stands out on this list. For one thing, no one's locked up in prison. What happens is the main character, Jean-Dominique Bauby, suffers a stroke, and he's trapped in his own body. All he can move is his left eye, right? So he cannot, he can't move through the world of his own devices. He's trapped in his own body. And because he's trapped in his own body, the film, it's a little bit different. It uses imagination. It uses the mind. He has to travel to places within his memory and his mind. And so cinematically, it does a few non-literal, it has a lot of non-literal images in the film because it's not a story about this boring place. It's a story. It's more of an internal struggle that he's got. Good film. Subtitles. Finally, that's also a true story, by the way. And finally, we get to the most recent film on the list, Room, starring Brie Larson. This is about a woman who was held captive in a room for 7 years. So literally, she's a captive in this space, and then she does get out. So those are your choices. Room, I believe Brie Larson, probably should have looked this up before I recorded this, but I believe she was nominated for an Oscar for her role last year. So those are some good choices to watch. So you pick your movies, you watch your movies, and every week you have a deadline. You're watching a movie a week, and you're filling out a form every week. Okay, so I've picked the films that I want to watch, and I've downloaded them. Oh. So if you go back to Google Classroom, you'll see the Dropbox download site. Click on that. You'll get all of the films available to you. I've labeled them A, B, C, D, except that there's no D because there's only 3 categories. So you're going to download your films. They're all around 600 or 700 megabytes each. They're pretty big. So, once you decide which ones you want to download, start the download and walk away because it's going to take a little while. I call them low res. They're pretty good resolution on your screen, whether it's your computer or on your phone. I wouldn't project them in the classroom. They're not high enough res to do that, but they're definitely watchable. So you'll pick out your films here. Okay, good. So I've picked my films. I've downloaded my films. I'm going to go back to the assignment page. What am I supposed to do now? Okay, did some quick research, picked them. Yes. Watch my first film, jotting down a few notes. This human spirit, maybe even redemption. I'm going to jot down a few notes, and then when I'm done with my film, I'm going to fill out the first Google form. What are you talking about, Prince? Oh, it's right there. Look at that. The first Google form. So, stuck inside. You're going to do this at least 3 times, once a week. Here's your name. Your film title just comes from a drop-down list. Let's say we watch Cool Hand Luke. Okay. Who's the main character, and how is he or she? I should fix that. Trapped, confused, or trapped or confined? Well, it's Luke, and he's in jail. Duh. There's bars, right? Confined. You don't have to put a lot for this. It just is starting to get your brain going. What's the first technique that you notice? Okay, here's where you observed something in the film. Hopefully you took notes on this. Otherwise, you've got the films. You can scrub back and forth, scroll back, try to find where was that spot, what was that part where the zoom was going in. I think it was during that scene where he was running around in the yard after eating the eggs. What? What did I notice? I noticed 3 fast zooms in a row. Oh, okay. How many minutes in the film was this? Okay, yeah. So this is the form I'd like it to take. Minutes, seconds. This is kind of the standard in deciding what time something happened. So if it was at 32 minutes into the film and 45 seconds, it looks like that. Now, here's the most important question. How is this technique important, right? So you've identified the technique. You've shown me where it is so I can find it if I'm looking for it. But now here's where we need several sentences. We need a lot of thought here. You're going to be analyzing, and analyzing is how you get credit for this form. How is this technique important? Well, I said 3 fast zooms in a row. I just thought it was cool. That's not a good enough answer. I just thought it was cool. Nope. So, what do you want to say about it? How does it affect the theme? the three fast zooms did happen during an intense part, and they were zoom in on people's faces. So you could say that the zooms they draw attention to themselves because it's really a staple of the time. You wouldn't see that in modern cinema, but the intensity that it raises by going from a wide shot to a very close-up shot on someone's eyes, and then to do that on one character, then another character, then another character, shows that everybody is emotionally invested in what's happening. They're watching. The tension is increasing for the scene. You could say those things here. And then you're going to fill out a second technique. What is it? Oh, there was a nice dolly shot that the camera was moving around and swiveling. When the music came up, it was almost like the camera was dancing. How many minutes in the film was it? Why is it important? And then finally, at the very bottom, what do you give it? How do you rate this film? Was it terrible? Oh my God, I can't believe Prince made me watch that. I sat through it. It's 2 years of my life, or it's 2 hours of my life I'm not getting back. Huh. Or, wow, this is the best movie ever. I can't believe people aren't talking about this. It's a 5. So it's a scale of 1 to 5. Just kind of figure out where your enjoyment of the film happened in there and submit the form. There. You do that once per week. You've accomplished your task. Let's go back to the assignment. So that's week 1. Did it. Good. Going to watch my next film. All right. It's already downloaded. Going to watch it by Tuesday. Fill out the second form by Friday. You can do these at whatever pace you want. I'm suggesting these paces because what's not negotiable is that each form is filled out by Friday. You can do them earlier, but have your form submitted by the checkpoint each Friday. So if you know you're going to be gone on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then watch your film earlier, submit the thing on Thursday. So you're going to watch all 3 films. Boom, 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 3 weeks. That actually takes us right up to April break. This week, next week, the next week, 3 films, 3 weeks, and then it's April break. I'm not going to assign any more work. I'm not going to assume that that's the 4th week of this work. But you could be working over that time. You could be beginning your film. I'm going to give you more information soon about what is going to be included in your film. But the final week is not watching any more films. It's assembling the snippets from the films that you've downloaded.
So that's your assignment. I hope everything's clear. And if it's not, please shoot me a question, a concern. Use that Remind app if you have it available to you. It goes right to my phone, and so I can respond more quickly. I do check email several times a day, not on the weekends. So if you do have a question and you ask me through email, that's fine. But just don't expect a response as soon as if you do message me through the Remind app. I hope you like the films. Good luck. I really miss you. I wish we could be screening these together in class, but this is the second best option. Miss you guys. Take care.